One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Perhaps one of the most memorable quotes in United States history. This line, spoken by Neil Armstrong, symbolizes the idea of space exploration. Throughout history, space exploration has been relentlessly studied and researched by numerous different groups and organizations across the globe. By the end of my speech, you will understand the history of space exploration, problems overcome and currently facing the space exploration industry, and the interest in space exploration in today's world. In order to truly understand what space exploration is, we must first look back at its history. As Hugh Dryden, an employee of NASA, stated in his article, Astronautics, the Exploration of Space, the space age began with the launching of Sputnik 1 by the USSR on October 3rd, 1957. And while we're on the topic of Sputnik, I will refer back to my audience analysis and the question that asked, what animal was the first to go into space? It turns out the correct answer is a dog. The dog's name was Laika and went into space riding the Sputnik 2, the USSR's second satellite. Similarly to the Sputnik launch, across the world in the United States, 1 year later, a similar event took place. Dryden mentioned later in his writing, the United States launched its first satellite, Explorer 1, on January 31st, 1958. This launch inspired a chain reaction of interest in space exploration in the United States. As Dryden notes, the President on April 2nd, 1958, recommended to Congress the formation of a civilian agency to be responsible for space activities concerned with problems of civil spaceflight, space science, and space technology. This agency later became known as NASA, or the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Although the launch of the Sputnik marks the beginning of the space age, interest in space exploration happened many years beforehand. According to Alexander McDonald, an officer at NASA, in his article, The Next Space Patrons, although John Quincy Adams failed in his initial attempts to create a national observatory, his efforts led to the creation of the Smithsonian, which became the first federal institution to invest in spaceflight technology development. Now that you know a little bit more about where space exploration started, it is important to understand the many obstacles it faced throughout its development. The issues faced by space exploration are plentiful and vary in many different categories, including technical, social, and overcrowding. First off are technical problems. As JetLab employee of NASA, Raymond Heacock said in his article, Scientific Instruments in Space Exploration, the environmental problems appear obvious, and yet the effects are very difficult to assess and test. Principal among these environmental problems are problems of vibration, shock, temperature, vacuum, radiation, and cosmic dust. Along with these physical problems come moral problems. In Harvard professor Matthew Weinzierl's paper, Space, the Final Economic Frontier, he writes, after the tragic events of the Challenger shuttle in 1986 and the Columbia shuttle in 2003, priority shifted towards the advancement of safety equipment. In order to keep the people's trust, the space exploration industry needed to show they were doing everything in their power to prevent such disasters. Third comes the issue of cooperation in space. As we all know, cooperation in space exploration has not always been the greatest. A prime example of this being the Cold War and the space race between the United States and Russia. But luckily, in the modern day, cooperation is going better. As Congressional Research Member Marcia Smith and Executive Director of the Planetary Society, Louise Friedman, wrote in their article, United States and Russia in Space, the United States accepted the higher 51-degree inclination in order to be consistent with previous Soviet experience and meet some Russian requirements. On the other hand, the Russians accepted the lower inclination to work with the US program. As the International Space Station is shared by many different countries around the world, it is necessary for cooperation in order to progress research. Finally, we arrive at the problem of crowding. As space exploration specialist and professor at Auckland University, Guglielmo Aglietti reveals in this passage current challenges and opportunities for space technologies, the issue of the overcrowded radio frequency spectrum, as well as the sustainability of the space environment, which is threatened by the growing amount of space debris, have to be tackled. After overcoming numerous problems, the space exploration industry has advanced into the modern age, changing along with time. There are many visions of what the future of space exploration will entail, but many focus on progressing areas of communication, commercial spaceflight, and tourism. When dealing with communication, it mostly deals with satellites. Guglielmo Eglieri wrote, "Climate change is a significant threat to our environment with potentially disastrous consequences and is an area where satellite technologies can help in tackling the challenge." Similarly, Matthew Weinzierl stated, "The dominance of the satellite business in space revenue is likely to hold for the foreseeable future, where published forecasts see revenue of $22 billion over the next decade." Another growing industry in space exploration is commercial spaceflight. On the topic of the International Space Station, Matthew Weinzierl wrote, "By 2008, two companies had convinced the agency of their ability to provide fixed-price contracts for 20 flights valued at $3.5 billion to SpaceX and Orbital Sciences. These flights are now a main way in which the International Space Station is resupplied." A new and growing industry in space exploration is space tourism. In his article, Weinzierl explained, a 2014 report by the Boston Consulting Group put global spending on luxury travel at $460 billion. Some companies such as Blue Origin, owned by Jeff Bezos, are working to claim a slice of this vast market for space. Now I will show you a video of the Apollo 11 launch, marking the interest in space exploration in the United States. After hearing my speech, I hope you are now well versed in the history of space exploration, the numerous issues conquered by the space exploration industry, and how space exploration plays a role in today's society. I'm glad I was able to inform you with out-of-this-world information, and thank you for listening to my speech.